Welcome to Conversations with Ambassador William Eacho. Today we'll be discussing the Human Rights Report, as well as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender issues, more commonly known as LGBT issues. Ambassador, thanks again for coming and discussing these issues with us.
Happy to be here.
Well, let's start with the Human Rights Report. So how long have these reports been produced by the Department of State, and why did the department begin doing so?
2012 marks the 37th year that the United States government has produced the annual country reports on human rights practices. The publication started as a congressional mandate for the State Department to report on human rights in countries receiving U.S. assistance. In those days, there were serious debates about whether human rights were even a legitimate concern in foreign policy. Today, there's no question. We assess 194 countries and translate these reports into more than 50 languages. The country reports provide an overview of the human rights situation around the world. The goal is to raise awareness of human rights conditions, in particular as these conditions affect the well-being of vulnerable groups, for example, women and children, and racial, religious, and sexual minorities.
So how are the reports used?
First, they provide data to Congress to inform its funding and policy decisions. That's the original purpose. These reports are also used throughout the U.S. and by many foreign governments as a reliable overview of what's happening in the world. And individual citizens and NGOs quickly adopted the U.S. reporting as the definitive reference on human rights in specific countries and territories.
We're often asked why there's no report on the United States. Why don't we report on ourselves?
Well, we do report on ourselves, even though Congress mandated that these State Department reports focus on foreign lands. We have vigorous monitoring within the United States by NGOs and the United States Department of Justice. In addition, the State Department submitted a comprehensive analysis of the U.S. situation to the UN Human Rights Council under a process called the Universal Periodic Review. This body evaluates the human rights records of each UN member state every 4 years. The United States review occurred in 2010. For that, we had extensive consultations with a range of civil society organizations and reflected their assessments. And then, at the UNHRC meeting in Geneva, we were examined, answering inquiries and responding to recommendations that other governments made to us. I should mention that we also report on our human rights record according to our treaty obligations. And in 2010, for the first time, a section on the United States was included in the annual Trafficking in Persons report. So it's fair to say that the United States is actively following through on its commitment to take a close and critical look at our own performance on human rights.
And what's been the assessment of the U.S. performance in these areas?
We recognize that the U.S. doesn't have a perfect human rights record. On the positive side, our international partners praised the strong human rights protections generally found in the laws and practices of our federal, state, and local governments. On the negative side, they expressed concern about some states applying the death penalty, about the federal detention facility at Guantanamo, and some immigration practices. What's important is that our democratic system provides self-correcting mechanisms, such as our robust civil society, a vibrant free media, independent branches of government, and a well-established rule of law. So it is a healthy sign that these areas of international criticism are all subject to vigorous and open debate in U.S. politics today. It's part of what our founding fathers called our striving for a more perfect union, and we take that very seriously.
And how has Austria fared in the last few years in the Human Rights Report?
The most recent country report for Austria indicates that there are no widespread or systemic human rights abuses. Austria continues to be an active partner in the global fight for human rights. The country has identified several human rights priorities, such as the protection of journalists and children's rights. In those areas, Austria plays a leading international role. Austria should also be commended for its work on addressing the abuse of domestic staff by foreign diplomats here. Of course, no one is perfect. As in the case of all countries, the report highlights areas for improvement, such as some societal discrimination against ethnic minorities. But overall, Austria's human rights story, both internationally and domestically, is a good one.
Recently, human rights of lesbian, gay, transgender, and bisexual people have gotten a lot of attention, including in the United States. So, what can you tell us about LGBT issues in America?
First, I'd like to say that the United States has made significant progress toward equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans. In December, President Obama signed the repeal of the discriminatory "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" policy. With this step, gay and lesbian Americans are able to serve openly in our armed forces for the first time in our nation's history, and their contributions will now be fully recognized. Many U.S. states are considering the issue of same-sex marriage, which is legal in 6 states and the District of Columbia, and also in several Native American tribes. This issue has seen both progress and setbacks, but the trend is toward wider acceptance. Indeed, President Obama recently gave his full support to same-sex marriage. The Obama administration has taken additional steps to eliminate discrimination on the basis of sexual and gender identity, especially in the U.S. federal workplace. And the U.S. government has supported these initiatives in the international arena. Last summer, we actively lobbied for South Africa's UN resolution that rejects abuses of people based on sexual orientation. In December, Secretary Clinton gave a historic address on LGBT rights. There is still more work to do to decriminalize homosexuality and promote mutual respect. The recent execution of a gay man in Iran and reports of unpunished violence against LGBT people from other countries, including the U.S., are sad reminders. Progress has been slow, but history is on our side. As President Obama has said, the American people will never stop striving for liberty and justice for all.
And one last question. In her speech, Secretary Clinton said, "In our embassies, our diplomats are raising concerns about specific cases and laws and working with a range of partners to strengthen human rights protections for all." What has the U.S. Embassy in Vienna done to promote awareness, tolerance, and strengthen human rights for all, especially those in the LGBT community?
We have ongoing programming to promote our message of awareness and mutual respect. We use social media to get the message out. For example, we posted an inspiring video clip on LGBT rights on Facebook. The clip featured testimonials by members of the LGBT community, showing the prejudice and injustice, while also highlighting President Obama's support for equal rights. At the Regenbogen Ball in Vienna, my deputy spoke in support of Austria's LGBT community and the country's efforts for human rights. Other embassy officers have helped with events such as the Austrian Gay Professionals Organization. We have several upcoming programs, including a presentation of the musical Surviving Love and a showing of the video Gay Rights Are Human Rights, featuring Secretary Clinton's speech in Geneva. As Secretary Clinton said, U.S. leadership on advancing human rights for LGBT people globally is in line with the Obama administration's priorities. On these questions, and of course on all aspects of human rights, the U.S. remains committed to upholding standards that apply to everyone around the world. And we look forward to working with Austria and the EU in general to strengthen universal respect for human rights.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's always interesting to discuss these issues with you.
Indeed, and thank you, because it's always interesting to get our perspective out there.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for more conversations with Ambassador Eacho.